Welcome to Inside Insights, your quick hit of tips, tools, and trends for manufacturing, distribution, and Dynamics 365 Business Central. Brought to you by InsightWorks.
So imagine spending, 18 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars to install this massive software system. And it's designed specifically to help your sales team quote faster.
Right.
But then on launch day, you realize that, the sales team is flying, but that brand new system is sending data that completely breaks your production line.
Oh, yeah. Missing routing steps, broken material requirements.
Exactly. Just total chaos on the shop floor.
Yeah.
Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. I'm really excited about this one.
Me too. Because that scenario, it plays out far more often than anyone in the enterprise software world wants to admit.
Yeah. And if you are listening right now, specifically, if you're an end user or maybe a solutions partner managing a Business Central system, you know exactly what we're talking about. You are likely dealing with the notorious configurable products headache.
It is a massive headache. You try to solve a problem on the front end for sales, and you accidentally create this huge operational bottleneck on the back end for manufacturing.
Which brings us to our mission for today. We really want to figure out, do you actually need to go out and buy a massive separate CPQ platform, configure, price, quote, or is the solution like already hiding inside the architecture of the ERP you currently use?
Right, because the underlying tension here is universal for anyone selling configurable goods. You have these distinct departments with fundamentally opposed immediate needs.
Oh, 100%. Okay, let's unpack this. It's basically like a three-way tug of war, right? But the rope is on fire.
That's a great way to put it.
Because everyone is pulling in different directions and getting burned. Sales, they just want speed. They need to get a complex quote into a customer's hands before that customer, calls competitor.
Right, velocity is everything for them. But then production is pulling the other way. They need precision. They want bills of materials and routings that are structurally sound.
Yeah, without having some engineer sit down and manually hand type out line items for every single custom order.
Exactly. And then you have finance.
Right. Finance is just standing in the background, yelling at everyone. They're demanding that all of this happens without requiring a second software subscription or some costly integration project.
And no dual data entry. They don't want to reconcile two separate systems at the end of the month.
It's a mess. When you introduce highly customized, configurable products into those gears, they just start stripping each other.
And when those gears start stripping, the immediate organizational reflex is to look outside. You look outside the existing system for a rescue tool. You feel the pain of quoting, so you go shopping for a tool that specializes in quoting.
Which brings us to the standalone CPQ market. And this is a behemoth of a category. The global market is projected to hit, between $3.6 and $3.9 billion this year?
Yeah, and manufacturing is consistently the largest application segment driving that spend.
Yeah.
People are just throwing money at the software category to stop the internal bleeding.
Right. But what's fascinating here is, I'm stealing your line.
No, go ahead. But honestly, what's fascinating here is the stark contrast between the marketing promises of those standalone CPQ platforms and the grim reality buried in their own buyer's guides.
Yeah, the data is wild.
If you dig into the implementation data, like for a mid-market rollout, meaning you have a relatively contained product catalog, basic logic, you're looking at 6 to 12 weeks before you even see a return on investment.
A quarter of the year just for the basics.
Yeah. Now look at an enterprise implementation. If you have multi-region pricing, complex engineering constraints, and you actually want this external CPQ to, speak intimately with your ERP, that timeline balloons to a 12 to 18-month project.
See, I am going to push back on that timeline heavily because, we live in an era of incredibly advanced cloud computing, right?
Sure.
We have REST APIs, we have webhooks, we've got tools that instantaneously pass JSON files back and forth between systems. Why on earth does it take a year and a half just to get a quoting tool to send a lump of materials to Business Central? It sounds, it sounds inflated.
I get why you'd think that, but the technology passing the data, that's not the bottleneck. The bottleneck is the fundamental architecture of a standalone system.
How so?
Well, a standalone CPQ is designed to be system agnostic. It's built to connect to SAP, Oracle, NetSuite, Dynamics, literally anything.
Oh, okay.
And because it's built to connect to everything out of the box, it natively understands nothing about your specific ERP environment.
Ah, I see. So the data mapping isn't just matching a field called like price to another field called price.
Far from it. You aren't just passing a price tag, you're trying to pass complex relational logic. Think about how Business Central handles costing methods, or inventory valuation, or manufacturing routings.
It's highly specific.
Exactly. The standalone CPQ doesn't inherently understand Business Central's specific item master structure. So during that 18-month implementation, your team is basically manually translating how a CPQ calculates a beam into how Business Central needs to read a beam.
Man, it's like buying a second brain for your business, because the first brain isn't calculating quotes fast enough, but this second brain doesn't speak your language.
That's exactly it.
So you end up hiring a full-time translator, which is that integration layer, right?
Right.
Just to sit between them. And that translator is constantly passing complex notes back and forth just so your sales hand knows what your production hand is doing.
And that translator analogy perfectly highlights the fragility of the whole setup.
Because translators make mistakes.
Or things just get out of sync. If an engineer goes into Business Central and, say, updates a routing step because a machine on the shop floor was replaced,
Right.
they now have to remember to log into a completely different software platform, the CPQ, and update the exact same logic.
Oh, wow. And if they forget?
If they forget, or if the API times out during a sync, the sales team sells a product based on obsolete production data.
And the gears strip again. Okay, so if bolting on a standalone system-agnostic platform creates this like integration nightmare where you're babysitting two separate data models, the logical alternative is eliminating the translator entirely.
Exactly, which means running the configuration logic natively. You just shift the entire process inside the existing ERP architecture.
So tell me about how a native setup actually functions. If I am an end user listening right now, what does this alternative look like in reality?
Well, the core solution in this space is called Product Configurator. And the defining characteristic is that it exists directly inside the sales quote or the sales order screen in Business Central.
Right inside the screen?
Right inside. There's no external portal. There's no middleware passing JSON files in the middle of the night.
So a sales rep just logs into the exact same BC interface they use every single day.
They do. The whole philosophy is that if your team already knows how to navigate Business Central, the learning curve to use the configurator is, well, practically zero.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want to ground this in the physical reality of a shop floor, right? Imagine a sales rep building a quote for, I don't know, a highly configurable industrial desk.
Good example.
In a disparate system, they are probably tabbing over to an external CPQ window, maybe referencing a massive color-coded Excel spreadsheet on a second monitor.
Oh, the dreaded spreadsheet.
Yeah, and they're constantly calling engineering to verify if, like, certain drawer configurations actually fit with a specific steel frame.
Which is a process that destroys sales velocity, and it introduces massive human error.
Totally. But natively, that rep just stays on the sales line in Business Central. They open up a BOM designer straight from the quote. They select the item category for industrial desk, and boom, they're immediately presented with mandatory and optional configuration fields.
Right, so they're selecting the desk length, the surface material, the leg style, the drawer inserts.
And the automation mechanics behind those selections. That is where the value lies. Suppose the customer asks for an 8-foot desk. As the rep changes the length field from 6 to 8, the underlying system recalculates the required quantity of steel trim.
Because there's a dynamic formula explicitly tied to the state of that specific field.
Yes.
Yeah.
The sales rep is not doing any math. They're just capturing the customer's requirements. And then, say the customer decides they want a 12-foot desk. But the company has a structural engineering rule. Any desk exceeding 10 feet requires a reinforced center support beam.
Otherwise, it sags in the middle.
Right. So the instant the rep selects 12 feet, the system automatically adds the center support beam to the required components list. The rep doesn't need an engineering degree, you know. The logic executes automatically based on the field parameters.
And while that front-end experience is obviously great for sales velocity, we have to connect this to the bigger picture of enterprise resource planning to see why a native architecture really matters.
Okay, let's trace the data. What is happening in the ERP while the rep is clicking those drop-downs?
So Product Configurator is doing all the heavy lifting in the background. It evaluates the exact configuration string the rep just built. First, it searches the database to see if this precise desk has ever been built before.
Oh, like checking historical orders.
Exactly. If it has, it grabs the existing item number. But if it's a completely unique combination, the system dynamically generates a brand new item number.
A unique identifier just for that specific custom desk.
From there, it automatically constructs the assembly or production BM alongside the exact manufacturing routing steps needed to build it, all based on those earlier field selections.
With no engineer hand-typing the materials line by line.
None. And this is a critical architectural advantage here. Because this newly configured item was born natively inside Business Central, the system just treats it like any standard off-the-shelf product.
Meaning it interacts seamlessly with the rest of the ERP modules.
Exactly. It flows instantly into your MRP, your material requirements planning, which is the engine that calculates raw material deficits and tells your purchasing team, hey, this is what you need to buy and when.
Right.
It also flows directly into the MPS, the master production schedule, which tells your shop floor managers when to actually start building based on machine capacity.
So there is no exporting a CSV file from a separate CPQ, importing it into BC, and just like hoping the field's mapped correctly so purchasing knows to buy the extra steel trim.
No hoping required. The data just exists where it needs to exist. The latency between a sales quote and a demand signal for purchasing basically drops to zero.
I mean, I follow the logic.
Yeah.
And structurally, it sounds incredibly efficient. However, I know any database architect listening to this is probably screaming right now.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going with this.
Right, because if we think about the reality of a high-volume sales desk, they might generate 50 different what-if quotes for a single customer.
Yeah, what if it's oak? What if it's maple?
What if it has 3 drawers instead of 2? It's a very common, highly iterative sales process.
Extremely common.
So if the native configurator is generating a brand new item master record along with a custom BUM and a routing for every single one of those 50 theoretical quotes, I mean, the Business Central database is going to bloat overnight.
It would be a disaster.
Yeah. Sales only closes a fraction of their quotes. You would literally be polluting your primary item index with thousands of abandoned theoretical products.
And you are hitting on a major structural vulnerability. It's actually one that standalone CPQ vendors love to point out when they argue against native ERP builds. Database bloat is a massive issue if the system isn't engineered to handle it.
But I'm guessing it is.
Right. A well-designed native solution employs a very specific mechanism to prevent this. It's called a quoting item.
Okay, walk me through the mechanics of a quoting item. How does that stop the database from turning into a graveyard of dead quotes?
It's essentially a relational database trick. When a rep is in the quote stage, they're highly iterative, experimenting with options. Product Configurator does not create a unique item master record.
Okay.
Instead, it utilizes a single generic base item number.
Ah, so all 50 desk quotes share a single placeholder item number. Something like, I don't know, desk quote 0001.
Precisely. It uses that shell item number, but it captures the unique configuration string. So the oak finish, the specific length, the extra drawers, and it stores those parameters in a temporary side table. Then that table is linked relationally to that specific quote document.
So it isolates the configuration data totally away from the main item index.
It keeps the item master completely pristine. The system only triggers the heavy database work like generating the permanent unique item number, the finalized BES, and the routing when the customer signs off, and that sales quote is officially converted into a sales order.
Man, that is brilliant. It really reminds me of the difference between keeping a perfectly organized digital filing cabinet versus like a chaotic kitchen junk drawer.
Oh, the junk drawer is a perfect analogy.
Right. Because without the quoting item mechanism, every theoretical sales scenario becomes junk thrown into the ERP drawer.
Yes.
And eventually, some poor database administrator has to spend their entire weekend running bulk delete scripts just to keep the system functional.
Exactly. But by using a temporary relational table, the junk never makes it into the filing cabinet in the first place.
It creates a firewall between sales experimentation and database integrity. I love that. Okay, so the quoting item mechanism keeps the database clean. But database integrity doesn't mean much if the physical product being quoted is, well, structurally impossible to build.
True.
Like a clean database with an order for an oak desk balancing on flimsy plastic legs is still a massive problem for production. How does the system prevent the sales rep from building a combination that just defies physics?
Right. So this requires looking beneath the front-end user interface. To prevent those physically impossible configurations, we rely on a mechanism called the Advanced Rule Builder.
Okay, and how does the rule builder mechanically enforce those physical limits?
It utilizes underlying Boolean logic constraint matrices, and dependency mapping.
Okay, you're getting technical on me.
I know. But basically, when you, as the systems manager, set up a product category, you are not just listing out options. You are explicitly defining the relationships between those options.
Give me a practical example of a constraint matrix in action. Make it real for me.
Okay, take the desk legs from your example. You encode a rule that literally states, if the desk material field is equal to solid oak, AAD, the desk length field, is greater than 6 feet, then the leg material field must not equal plastic.
Oh, I see. So it evaluates the conditional statements in real time as they're clicking.
In milliseconds. And based on that evaluation, the rule builder actively modifies the user interface for the sales rep.
Wait, it changes the UI?
Yeah. It will completely hide the plastic option from the leg material dropdown. Like, it's just gone, so it cannot even be selected. Or in some cases, it will trigger an immediate error prompt explaining why a mandatory component has to be added.
It's like having an invisible engineer standing over the rep's shoulder, enforcing guardrails so they can't drive the quote off a cliff.
That's a great way to visualize it. It fundamentally shifts the configurator from a passive list of dropdowns into an active constraint engine. And that guarantees manufacturability. It ensures that a quick configuration on a Tuesday doesn't mutate into a furious customer support ticket on a Friday because production had to halt the line.
So what does this all mean? I mean, the architecture is elegant. Native data flow, no middleware, no database bloat, and you have these Boolean guardrails protecting the shop floor. But I have to play the skeptic for a second.
Go for it.
If a solutions partner installs Product Configurator tomorrow, does this complex engineering logic just magically populate inside Business Central?
Yeah, this is the critical, honest caveat that anyone managing these systems really needs to understand. Moving to a native architecture solves the data flow problem entirely, but it does not eliminate the implementation work.
The software still has to learn how your specific company builds products.
Exactly. Think about a company that has been running their entire quoting process out of a legacy Excel spreadsheet for the last decade.
Oh man, we all know that spreadsheet.
Right. That spreadsheet is likely filled with nested IF statements, complex macros, and bizarre workarounds that literally only the senior engineer understands.
Yeah, it takes 3 minutes just to open, and it crashes if you look at it wrong.
But that spreadsheet represents a decade of hard-won tribal knowledge. Translating that human intuition and those nested macros into explicit Boolean rules inside the advanced rule builder, that requires serious analytical effort. Someone has to sit down, map the constraint matrices, define the item categories, and build all that relational logic.
It's a significant data transcription project. You still have to put the work in to build the foundation.
You absolutely do. But the ultimate value proposition here, the real reason this architectural shift is so vital for end users and solutions partners, is where that work is deposited. When you build this logic natively, you only have to do the work once.
Rather than maintaining it across multiple platforms.
Exactly. You build it once directly inside the core ERP that runs your entire business. You don't build it in a standalone CPQ, then try to map it across a fragile API layer, and then continuously babysit 2 separate data models just to ensure they stay synchronized every time a supplier changes a part number.
It is the architectural difference between pouring a deep, solid foundation for one house versus building 2 separate houses and trying to keep a rickety suspension bridge between them from collapsing every time the wind blows.
Perfect analogy.
You invest the setup effort up front, but you embed that intelligence directly into the central nervous system of your business.
And consolidating your logic into a single source of truth is always the most scalable path.
This has been a deeply revealing look into the mechanics of enterprise data architecture. To synthesize the core findings of our dive today, for organizations operating on Business Central, the instinct to solve quoting pains by purchasing a standalone CPQ platform often leads directly into an 18-month integration trap.
A trap characterized by brittle APIs and redundant data maintenance.
But by shifting the paradigm and solving configurable quoting natively inside the ERP, you eliminate the integration layer entirely. You protect the database with quoting item mechanisms, you guarantee manufacturability with constraint-based rule builders, and you ensure that your sales data flows instantaneously into your material planning and production schedules.
It creates a seamless continuum, from the customer's initial request all the way down to the shop floor.
And for the end users and solutions partners evaluating their own system architecture right now, you don't have to base your decisions purely on theory. There's a way to test this native approach against your own data.
Yeah, a 30-day trial of Product Configurator is actually available.
which allows you to build out a constraint matrix for your own products and really see how it interacts with your existing Business Central environment. You can explore the mechanics or even connect with a partner for a technical demonstration by visiting cpqfordynamics.com.
Testing the software with your own item master data is honestly the most objective way to evaluate the architectural fit.
As we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final structural thought to consider. Think about the most complex, headache-inducing, highly configurable product your company manufactures. Now imagine if every piece of tribal knowledge, every engineering constraint, every material dependency, every routing variation that is currently locked inside a spreadsheet or trapped in the mind of your senior engineer was systematically digitized into a native rule builder. Imagine your newest sales rep logging in on their very first day, and the system automatically guiding them to a structurally perfect, highly profitable quote in minutes. How rapidly could your organization scale if your deepest technical expertise was instantly democratized for every single user on the platform? Something to think about. Keep exploring those systems, and we will see you on the next deep dive.